The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine grounds of Coronado Naval Academy as Maya Rodriguez stepped out of the taxi. Her single duffel bag contained everything she owned that mattered. The rest was just stuff. At 28, she had learned the difference. The Academy's red brick buildings stretched before her like something from a movie about privileged college kids. Nothing like the forward operating bases she'd called home for the past 6 years. No razor wire, no blast barriers, no burned smell of diesel and sand that never quite left your clothes. Just manicured lawns and cadets in pressed uniforms walking between classes like they owned the world. Maya adjusted the straps of her bag and started walking. Her transfer orders were clear: temporary assignment as a training instructor while recovering from injuries sustained during her last deployment. The Navy brass wanted their most experienced operators to share knowledge with the next generation. What they didn't mention was how little the next generation wanted to learn from someone who looked like her. She was small, barely 5'4", with calloused hands and scars hidden beneath her regulation sleeves. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes had seen things most of these kids couldn't imagine. But to them, she probably looked like someone's little sister who got lost on campus. The administration building was easy to find. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over polished floors that reflected everything. Maya reported to the duty officer, a stern-faced commander who barely looked up from his paperwork. "Rodriguez, Maya. Petty Officer First Class," she said, placing her orders on his desk. He glanced at the papers, then at her. "You're the new PT instructor?" "Combat Tactics and Close Quarters Combat, sir." "Right." He stamped her orders and slid them back. "Barracks assignment is Building C, second floor. Classes start Monday. Try to keep up with the pace here." Maya bit back her first response. "Understood, sir." Walking across campus with her room assignment, she noticed the stairs. Groups of cadets would stop talking when she passed, then start whispering when they thought she was out of earshot. She caught fragments. "New girl. Looks young. Wonder what she did to get assigned here." Building C was newer than the others, all glass and steel that sparkled in the afternoon light. The lobby was filled with cadets heading to dinner, their voices echoing off the high ceiling. Conversations died as Maya entered. 20 pairs of eyes tracked her movement to the elevator. "Excuse me?" a voice called out. Maya turned to see 3 cadets approaching. The leader was tall and broad-shouldered with perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of confident smile that usually meant trouble. His name tag read Patterson. "You lost?" Patterson asked, his tone friendly but his eyes calculating. "Visiting someone?" "I live here now," Maya said simply. The 3 exchanged glances. "Really? What's your program?" "I'm not a cadet. I'm an instructor." This got their attention. More cadets gathered around, forming a loose circle. Maya recognized the behavior. Pack animals testing a new presence in their territory. "Instructor in what?" asked the second cadet, shorter but stockier, with the look of someone who spent serious time in the gym. His name tag said Crawford. "Combat Tactics." Laughter rippled through the group. Not cruel exactly, but dismissive, like adults humoring a child who claimed they could fly. "Combat Tactics," Patterson repeated. "That's intense. Where'd you serve?" "Around." "Around where, specifically?" The third cadet stepped closer. This one was different from the others, lean and sharp-eyed with the patient stillness of someone who thought before acting. His name tag read Kim. Maya met his gaze steadily. "Wherever they needed me." "That's pretty vague," Crawford said. "I mean, if you're going to teach us about combat, shouldn't we know your qualifications?" "You'll learn them Monday." The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Maya stepped toward it, but Patterson moved smoothly to block her path. "Hey, no offense," he said, But you look pretty young to be teaching college seniors about fighting. How old are you anyway? 22? 23? Old enough. Come on, don't be shy. We're all friends here. His smile widened. I'm just saying, some of us have been training for 4 years. We've studied military history, tactics, leadership. We've done survival training, weapons training, everything. So when someone who looks like she just graduated high school shows up claiming to be our instructor, he let the sentence hang in the air. The circle of cadets had grown. Maya counted 15 now, maybe more. All male. All watching her with various degrees of amusement and skepticism. I understand your concern, Maya said quietly, but I'm here to do a job, if you'll excuse me. She stepped toward the elevator again. This time, Kim moved to block her other side. Look, we're not trying to be jerks, Kim said. His voice was calmer than the others, more reasonable. It's just that this is serious stuff. Combat tactics aren't something you learn from books or movies. They require real experience. I agree. So you understand why we might be curious about your background? Maya looked around the circle of faces, some hostile, some curious, all certain they had her figured out. She'd seen the same expression on Taliban fighters right before they learned how wrong they were. I understand you think you know me, she said. You don't, Crawford snorted. Right, let me guess. You're some kind of secret badass? Navy SEAL? Special Forces? Come on. I'm exactly what my orders say I am, a petty officer assigned to teach classes. Petty officer, Patterson mused. That's what, E5? Pretty low rank for someone teaching at the academy. Rank doesn't determine competence. Doesn't it, though? He stepped closer, using his height advantage. I mean, if you were really qualified, wouldn't you be higher up by now, unless... He pretended to think. Unless you screwed up somewhere, got demoted, or maybe you're just riding a desk because you couldn't cut it in the real Navy. The accusation hit its mark. Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest. Not anger exactly, but something colder, more focused. Is there a point to this conversation? She asked. Just getting to know our new instructor, Kim said. Team building. Right, team building. Maya shifted her duffel bag to her other shoulder. Well, you'll have plenty of chances to get to know me in class. Actually, Crawford said, we were thinking maybe you could give us a preview. You know, show us what you've got. Prove you're worth listening to. The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Maya felt the familiar calculation running in her mind. Threat assessment, escape routes, potential outcomes, old habits from places where hesitation got you killed. I don't have anything to prove to you, she said. See, that's where you're wrong, Patterson said, his friendly mask slipping slightly. This is our academy, our program. We've worked our asses off to get here. And we don't appreciate some mystery girl showing up to teach us about things she's probably never experienced. You know what I think? Crawford added. I think you're here because someone felt sorry for you. Diversity hire, maybe, or you knew someone who pulled strings. The elevator dinged again. The doors opened to reveal an empty car. Maya started toward it, but now the entire circle closed in slightly. Not quite blocking her, but making it clear she'd have to push through them. Where are you going? Patterson asked. We're just talking. Conversation's over. Come on, don't be like that. We're trying to welcome you to the team. His voice carried that tone Maya recognized from officers who thought their rank gave them license to be assholes. All we want is a little demonstration. Show us a few moves. Prove you belong here. Maya stopped walking. Around her, 15 cadets waited to see what she'd do. In the sudden silence, she could hear the hum of fluorescent lights, the distant sound of laughter from the dining hall, her own steady breathing. She'd been in worse situations, a lot worse. But those had been different. Those had been war zones where the rules were clear and the stakes were life and death. Here the rules were murky and the stakes were just pride and politics, but the feeling was the same. Predators testing their prey. "You want a demonstration?" she said quietly. "That's all we're asking," Patterson said, his confidence returning. Maya set down her duffel bag and looked around the circle. "Okay." The cadets perked up, grins spreading across their faces. This was what they'd been waiting for. A chance to put the new girl in her place, to show her how things worked in their world. "Who wants to go first?" Maya asked. "I'll do it," Crawford volunteered immediately. He stepped into the center of the circle, rolling his shoulders and cracking his knuckles. "What do you want me to do? Some kind of wrestling match? Arm wrestling?" "Just try to grab me," Maya said. Crawford laughed. "That's it? Just grab you? Just try." The big cadet moved forward with the confidence of someone who'd never lost a fight that mattered. He was strong and well-trained. Maya could see that. His approach was textbook, balanced stance, controlled movement, hands positioned to grapple. He reached for her shoulders. Maya didn't move until his hands were inches away. Then she shifted left, trapped his right wrist with both hands, and used his own momentum to send him stumbling past her. He recovered quickly, turning back with surprise instead of his earlier confidence. "Lucky," he muttered, and tried again. This time he was more careful, more aggressive. He feinted with his left hand and reached with his right. Maya ducked under the grab, stepped behind him, and tapped him lightly on the back of the head. "2 for 2, she said. Crawford's face was red now. Best of 3. His third attempt was pure aggression. He rushed forward, trying to tackle her around the waist. Maya sidestepped, grabbed his extended arm, and used his momentum to guide him gently to the floor. He landed hard, but unhurt, staring up at her in shock. "Any other volunteers?" Maya asked. The silence stretched out. Then Patterson stepped forward. "My turn," he said. But Kim put a hand on his arm. "Maybe that's enough for tonight." "No," Patterson shook him off. She got lucky with Crawford. He wasn't taking it seriously. Maya waited. She could see the calculation in Patterson's eyes, the same kind of cold assessment she'd learned to recognize in enemy fighters. This one was different from Crawford, smarter, more dangerous. "You move fast," Patterson said, circling her slowly. "Good reflexes. But Crawford was going easy on you because you're a girl. I won't make that mistake." "Good," Maya said. When Patterson moved, it was with the speed and precision of serious training. Not the Academy's basic combat courses, but something more advanced. Martial arts, maybe, or serious self-defense training. His technique was clean, and he adapted quickly when Maya dodged his first grab. For 30 seconds, they moved around each other like dancers, him attacking, her evading. The circle of cadets watched in growing silence as it became clear this wasn't the easy victory they'd expected. Patterson was breathing hard now, frustrated by his inability to lay hands on someone half his size. His attacks became wider, more desperate. Maya let him tire himself out, then caught his wrist during an overextended grab and applied just enough pressure to make him wince. "Yield?" she asked quietly. For a moment, she thought he might escalate. His muscles tensed, and she saw the anger in his eyes, the humiliation of being handled so easily by the girl they'd wanted to intimidate. But Kim stepped forward again. "That's enough," he said firmly. "She made her point." Patterson jerked his wrist free, rubbing where Maya's grip had left red marks. "This doesn't prove anything," he said. "This is just party tricks. Real combat is different." "You're right," Maya said, picking up her duffel bag. "Real combat is very different." The elevator was still waiting. This time no one moved to block her path. She stepped inside and turned to face the group of cadets, all of them staring at her with new expressions. Not respect, exactly, but a wary kind of attention. "See you Monday," she said as the doors closed. In the elevator, Maya allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't satisfaction exactly, more like the grim amusement of a professional who'd just watched amateurs learn their first hard lesson. Her room on the second floor was small but clean, with a narrow window overlooking the parade ground. She unpacked quickly, hanging her few civilian clothes in the closet and placing her uniforms in the dresser. The last item was a photo, her SEAL team from her final deployment, 12 faces smiling at the camera in front of a helicopter in Afghanistan. She set the photo on the nightstand and looked out the window. Below, cadets moved between buildings in small groups, their voices carrying up through the evening air. Somewhere among them were Patterson, Crawford, Kim, and the others from the lobby. They'd be talking about what happened, trying to figure out who she really was. Let them wonder, Maya thought. Monday would come soon enough, and then they'd start to understand just how wrong their first impressions had been. Her phone buzzed with a text from her former team leader. "How's civilian life treating you?" Maya typed back. "Still figuring that out." She didn't mention the confrontation downstairs. Captain Morrison had enough to worry about without hearing that his former operator was already making waves at her new assignment. Besides, this was just the beginning. The real test would come when she started teaching classes, when these cadets realized that the small, quiet woman they'd underestimated was about to become a permanent part of their lives. Outside her window, the sun was setting behind the academy's bell tower, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It reminded her of sunsets in Kandahar, but without the sound of distant gunfire or the smell of burning trash. This was supposed to be safer, easier. A chance to transition back to normal life. But as she watched the cadets below, Maya wondered if normal was something she'd ever truly find again. The skills that had kept her alive overseas didn't just disappear. The instincts that had made her one of the Navy's most effective operators couldn't be turned off like a switch. Tomorrow, she'd start preparing for her first classes. She'd review the curriculum, study the roster of students, plan her lessons. But tonight, she'd think about the 15 young men who thought they knew what combat meant and wonder how many of them would still be underestimating her when the week was over. Outside, the academy bells chimed the hour. Maya closed her eyes and listened to the sound echo across the campus, carried on the evening wind like a promise of things to come. Maya woke at 0500 hours, same as every day for the past 8 years. Her body didn't care that she was no longer in a war zone where dawn brought the possibility of enemy contact. The rhythm was burned into her DNA now, as permanent as the scars on her left shoulder from shrapnel that had come too close. She ran her usual 5 miles through the pre-dawn darkness, her footsteps echoing off empty sidewalks. The academy was beautiful at this hour, all shadows and silence. By the time she returned to her room, the first cadets were stumbling toward the dining hall, most of them looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Maya showered, dressed in her instructor's uniform, and headed to the combat tactics classroom. The space was larger than she'd expected, with padded mats covering most of the floor and a wall lined with training weapons. Everything was clean and new, nothing like the improvised training spaces she was used to. She spent an hour reviewing the class roster and curriculum. 32 students, all senior cadets preparing for their final year. The names Patterson, Crawford, and Kim were all on the list, along with 29 others who would probably have heard about last night's encounter by now. At 800, they began filing in. Maya stood at attention near the front of the class, watching their faces as they spotted her. Some looked curious, others skeptical. A few seemed amused, like they were expecting entertainment. Patterson entered with his usual confident stride, but Maya caught the way his eyes swept the room, assessing exits and angles. Crawford looked sullen, probably still embarrassed from being handled so easily. Kim entered last, his expression unreadable. "Take your positions," Maya said once they were all present. The cadets arranged themselves in loose formation on the mats, whispering among themselves. Maya waited until they settled down. "I'm Petty Officer Rodriguez," she said. "For the next 8 weeks, I'll be teaching you close quarters combat and tactical awareness. Some of you have questions about my qualifications. That's understandable. Questions show you're thinking, which is good. Dead soldiers don't think much." A few nervous laughs from the group. Maya continued. "Combat is not what you see in movies. It's not about looking tough or proving how strong you are. It's about staying alive and completing your mission. Everything I teach you will focus on those 2 objectives." She gestured toward the wall of training weapons. "Who can tell me the most important weapon in any combat situation?" Hands shot up around the room. Maya pointed to a cadet in the back. "Your rifle, ma'am." "Wrong. Next." "Your sidearm." "Wrong." "Grenades?" suggested another cadet. "Still wrong." Maya tapped her temple. "Your most important weapon is your mind. Everything else is just tools. Your brain keeps you alive. Your brain completes the mission. Your brain gets you home." Patterson raised his hand. "What about when you don't have time to think? When everything happens fast?" "Good question." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of mockery. She found none. "Training creates instincts. Proper training means your brain works faster than conscious thought. Muscle memory takes over when there's no time for analysis." She walked to the center of the mats. "I need a volunteer." No one moved. Maya let the silence stretch out. "Yesterday, 3 of you were eager to test me. Today, no volunteers?" Crawford stood up. "I'll do it. What's your name, cadet?" "Crawford, ma'am." "Come here, Crawford." He approached cautiously, remembering how their last encounter had ended. Maya appreciated the learning. "Crawford is going to attack me," she announced to the class. "Watch what happens." Crawford looked uncertain. "Attack you how?" "However you want. Try to hurt me." "I don't want to hurt you." "You won't." The confidence in her voice seemed to sting. Crawford's jaw tightened and he moved forward, throwing a careful right cross toward her shoulder. Maya slipped the punch and tapped him lightly on the ribs. "Dead," she said. "In a real fight." "That tap would have been a knife between your ribs. Next." Crawford tried again, this time with a combination: jab, cross, hook. Maya avoided all 3 and touched his throat with 2 fingers. "Dead again." "Your turn is over. Who's next?" This time Patterson stood without being asked. He approached with the same careful assessment Maya had seen the night before. "Patterson, right?" "Yes, ma'am." "Show me what you've got." Patterson moved like he had some real training. His stance was solid, his attacks measured and controlled, but Maya had fought men who'd learned their skills in places where mistakes meant death. Patterson's technique was good, but it was academic, safe. She let him work for 30 seconds, dodging and deflecting his strikes while pointing out the openings he was leaving. Finally, she caught his wrist mid-punch and applied pressure to a nerve cluster. Patterson's hand opened involuntarily and he winced. "Control the wrist. Control the weapon," Maya said, releasing him. "Your turn is over." Kim was already standing. "My turn?" Maya nodded. Kim approached differently than the others. Instead of trying to look confident or aggressive, he moved with genuine caution. His first attack was a feint, testing her reactions. When she didn't take the bait, he tried a low kick toward her knee. Maya checked the kick and countered with a palm strike that stopped inches from his nose. Kim stepped back, nodding appreciatively. "Better," Maya said. "You're thinking instead of just reacting, but you're still telegraphing your intentions." She demonstrated on him for another minute, showing the class how his subtle weight shifts and muscle tension gave away his plans before he moved. "Combat awareness," she said, as Kim returned to formation. "Your body language speaks before your fists do. Learn to read it in your enemies. Learn to control it in yourself." For the next hour, she ran them through basic exercises: stance, movement, situational awareness. She watched them work, noting who took the instructions seriously and who seemed to think they already knew better. Patterson was in the second category. He went through the motions, but Maya could see the skepticism in his posture. He thought she was teaching them elementary material, stuff they'd already mastered. "Patterson," she called out. "Come here." He approached with that familiar, confident smile. "Yes, ma'am? You seem to think these exercises are beneath you." "Not at all, ma'am, just familiar." "Familiar from where?" "I've been training martial arts since I was 10. Taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, some Krav Maga. I've competed nationally." Maya nodded. "Competitive martial arts, that explains the technique." "Thank you, ma'am." It wasn't a compliment. The smile faded from Patterson's face. "Competition fighting is sport. Rules, referees, safety equipment. Combat is survival, different skills. I understand the difference." "Do you?" Maya stepped closer. "In competition, what happens when you lose?" "You lose the match." "Right. In combat, what happens when you lose?" Patterson hesitated. "You die. Your whole team dies. Your mission fails. People counting on you never see home again." Maya's voice stayed level, but something in it made the entire class go quiet. "Competition teaches you to win points. Combat teaches you to stay alive. Very different lessons." She gestured toward the wall of training weapons. "Kim, bring me 2 knives." Kim selected 2 rubber training blades and brought them over. Maya handed one to Patterson. "Now we're going to learn the difference," she said. Patterson took the training knife, his confidence returning. "Knife fighting? Knife surviving. The goal isn't to look good or score points. The goal is to not die." Maya held her blade casually, pointing downward. "Attack me." Patterson moved into what was clearly a trained fighting stance. The knife came up in a reverse grip, his body angled for maximum power. He was fast and controlled, moving with the precision of someone who'd drilled these techniques thousands of times. Maya waited until he was committed to his attack, then moved like something had been released inside her. Her knife hand swept up to deflect his blade while her off hand struck his wrist. The training weapon went flying. Before Patterson could react, Maya's blade was against his throat. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. "Dead," Maya said quietly. She stepped back and Patterson stared at her, his confidence completely shattered. Around the room, 31 cadets watched in absolute silence. "Anyone else think their competition training prepared them for combat?" Maya asked. No hands went up. "Good. Now we can start learning." The rest of the class was different. The cadets paid attention with the focused intensity of people who just realized how much they didn't know. Maya ran them through basic knife defense, showing them the difference between classroom theory and real-world application. By the end of the hour, they were sweating and frustrated, but they were learning. Maya could see it in their movements, the way they started thinking tactically instead of athletically. "Tomorrow we'll work on situational awareness," she said as they prepared to leave. "Your assignment is to spend 1 hour observing your environment. Count exits, identify potential weapons, note blind spots and choke points. Write a 2-page report on your observations." The cadets filed out, talking in subdued voices. Patterson lingered near the door, clearly wanting to say something. "Question, cadet?" Maya asked. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Maya began collecting the training weapons. "Same place you learn everything important, the hard way." "I mean, what was your training? What school?" She looked at him directly. "You want my credentials?" "Yes, ma'am." Maya set down the weapons and faced him fully. "I went to school in Fallujah, advanced coursework in Kandahar, doctoral studies in places that don't exist on maps. My professors wore bomb vests and my classmates came home in boxes." She picked up the weapons again. "Any other questions about my education?" Patterson shook his head and left without another word. That evening, Maya sat in her room reviewing the day's events. The confrontation with Patterson had been necessary, but it worried her. She'd revealed more than she'd intended. Let some of the darkness show through. These kids weren't her enemies, even if they acted like it sometimes. Her phone rang. Captain Morrison's name appeared on the screen. "How's the teaching life?" he asked without preamble. "Complicated." "Already? It's your second day." Maya told him about the encounters with the cadets, leaving out the more personal details. Morrison listened without interruption. "They're testing you," he said when she finished. "Natural behavior. You're new, you're different, and you're in a position of authority. They need to know where you fit in the pack order. I know what they're doing. The question is how far to let it go. How far would you let it go if they were your team in theater? That's different. Over there, stupidity gets you killed. Here, it just gets you bad grades." "Does it, though?" Morrison's voice was serious. "These kids are going to be officers in 18 months. They'll command troops in combat zones. The arrogance you don't break now might get soldiers killed later." Maya considered this. "You think I should push harder?" "I think you should do what you always do. Teach them the truth, whether they want to hear it or not." After he hung up, Maya stared out her window at the academy grounds. Students moved between buildings in the gathering darkness, their voices carrying on the evening air. Somewhere among them were Patterson, Crawford, Kim, and the others from her class. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The cadets would have spent the evening processing what happened, talking among themselves, maybe doing research on their mysterious instructor. Some would be more cautious, others more aggressive. Either way, they'd be back. Maya opened her laptop and began preparing for the next day's lesson. If Morrison was right, if these young officers needed to understand the reality of command and combat, then she'd give them a full education, starting tomorrow. Her reflection in the window showed a small woman in a regulation uniform, someone who looked like she belonged in an office or classroom, not a battlefield. It was a useful deception, one that had served her well in places where enemies underestimated threats based on appearances. But the reflection also showed something else. The alertness in her posture, the way her eyes constantly scanned her surroundings, the unconscious awareness of exits and approaches that marked someone who'd learned to survive in places where survival wasn't guaranteed. The cadets had seen glimpses of this during their encounters. Tomorrow they'd see more, and maybe, if they were smart enough to learn, they'd understand that the most dangerous enemies were often the ones who looked least threatening. Maya closed her laptop and prepared for bed. Tomorrow's lesson would be about psychological warfare and misdirection. She had a feeling it was going to be very educational for everyone involved. Outside her window, the academy bells chimed 10 o'clock. In a few hours, she'd wake at 0500 and start another day of teaching young officers about the realities of war. It wasn't the mission she'd expected when she joined the Navy, but it might be the most important one she'd ever been given. The reflection in her window nodded back at her, and Maya smiled grimly at her own resolve. Let the cadets bring whatever challenges they had planned. She'd faced worse enemies than overconfident college students, and she was still here to tell about it. The ambush was planned for Thursday night. Maya had sensed something building all week. The cadets in her classes had grown quieter, more watchful. They completed their assignments and participated in exercises, but there was an undercurrent of tension that reminded her of pre-mission briefings where everyone knew someone might not come home. Patterson was the catalyst. She could see it in the way the other cadets deferred to him, the subtle way conversations stopped when she approached groups on campus. He'd been humiliated in front of his peers, and men like Patterson didn't accept humiliation gracefully. By Wednesday, Maya knew they were planning something. The question was what? She found out Thursday evening when she returned from dinner to find her door propped open. Not broken, not forced. Someone with lock-picking skills had gotten inside and wanted her to know it. Maya stood in the hallway assessing. Her room was on the second floor with windows that opened onto the parade ground. 2 stairwells provided access to this level, plus the elevator. If someone wanted to trap her, this was a decent location. She stepped inside cautiously, every sense alert. The room looked normal at first glance, but her trained eye caught the subtle signs. Clothes in her dresser shifted slightly, papers on her desk rearranged, the photo of her SEAL team turned at a different angle. They'd been looking for information about her background. A note lay on her pillow, written in block letters. Basement gym, midnight. Come alone if you're not a coward. Maya read the note twice, then checked her watch. 2130 hours. Less than 3 hours to prepare for whatever they had planned. She'd been in similar situations before, walking into obvious traps because the mission required it. But this was different. These weren't enemy combatants who followed rules of engagement, even twisted ones. These were American cadets who thought they were playing games. The smart move would be to report this to the academy commander and let military justice handle whatever scheme Patterson had organized. But Maya knew how that would play out. Denials. Claims that it was just a prank. Maybe minor disciplinary action that would only make them more careful about getting caught next time. Besides, if Morrison was right about these cadets becoming officers, maybe it was time for them to learn what real consequences looked like. Maya spent the next 2 hours preparing. She changed into dark civilian clothes and soft-soled shoes. No weapons. This was still an American military academy, not a war zone. But she did some stretching exercises to make sure her injured shoulder was loose and ready. At 2350 hours, she made her way to the basement. The gym was in the sublevel of Building A, normally locked after 2200 hours. But when Maya tried the door, it opened smoothly. Emergency lighting provided just enough illumination to see the basic layout. Exercise equipment, free weights, a large open area with workout mats. You came. The voice echoed from the shadows near the far wall. Maya stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. I'm here. Lights snapped on, revealing the setup. 12 cadets stood in a rough semicircle around the open workout area. Patterson was in the center, flanked by Crawford and Kim, the others she recognized from her classes, but their names didn't matter now. We need to settle something, Patterson said. Maya walked to the center of the space, noting exits and obstacles. The emergency lighting had been her first clue. They'd done reconnaissance, planned this carefully. What exactly are we settling? She asked. Whether you belong here? Patterson stepped forward. See, we did some research on you, asked around, made some calls. Want to know what we found? Maya waited. Nothing, Crawford said from behind him. No combat records we could access, no medals listed in the public databases, no war stories from anyone who served with you. Which tells us you're either classified above our pay grade, Kim added, or you're full of shit. So we designed a test, Patterson continued, 12 on 1. If you're really what you claim to be, you should be able to handle us. Maya looked around the circle of faces, young, confident, convinced they had her figured out. And if I can't? Then you admit you've been lying about your qualifications and transfer out of the academy. And if I can? Patterson's smile was cold. Then we'll know you're the real deal. Maya considered the odds. 12 trained, athletic young men in peak physical condition, all of them motivated by wounded pride and peer pressure. In a confined space with limited exits and no backup. She'd faced worse odds and survived. But those had been life-or-death situations where she could use lethal force. Here she had to subdue 12 attackers without seriously injuring them, while they had no such restrictions. You realize this is assault, she said. Prove it, Patterson replied. Your word against 12 cadets with spotless records. Maya nodded slowly. The trap was well designed, she had to admit. Win or lose, they'd accomplished their goal of forcing a confrontation on their terms. One condition, she said. You're not in a position to negotiate. When this is over, win or lose, you listen to what I have to say. 5 minutes of your time. Patterson glanced at the others. Deal. The attack came from 3 directions at once. Maya had been expecting it, reading their body language and positioning. Kim came from the left, Crawford from the right, and a third cadet she didn't know well from behind. Classic pincer movement, designed to overwhelm through coordination. She dropped low, sweeping Kim's legs while pivoting to avoid Crawford's grab. The third attacker stumbled over Kim as he fell. 3 down in the first 5 seconds, but 9 more were already moving. Maya rolled away from a kick aimed at her ribs, came up under another cadet's guard, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He folded over, gasping. She used his body as a shield against 2 more attackers, then pivoted and threw him into a third. 7 down, 5 to go. But the first attackers were already recovering, and Maya felt the burn in her injured shoulder as she threw another cadet over her hip. The space was too confined, too many bodies in too small an area. Even with her training, the numbers were overwhelming. A fist caught her on the left temple, making her vision blur momentarily. She responded with a knee strike that dropped her attacker, but 2 more were already on her, trying to pin her arms. Maya broke free with a move that would have shattered elbows in a real fight, but she pulled the force at the last second, still enough to send both cadets stumbling backward, nursing bruised joints. Patterson came at her then, moving with the careful precision she'd seen in class. He'd learned from their earlier encounters, approaching with more respect for her abilities. Maya let him close distance, then caught his leading hand and used his momentum to throw him across the room. He hit the crash mats hard but rolled with the impact, coming back to his feet with practiced ease. "Now I'm impressed," he said, breathing hard. The other cadets were regrouping, forming a loose circle again. Maya counted quickly. All 12 were still mobile, though several were moving carefully, nursing bruises and strained joints. Her own breathing was labored now, sweat stinging her eyes. The shoulder was holding up, but she could feel the old injury starting to tighten. "Ready for round 2?" Crawford asked. This time they came at her methodically, 2 at a time in coordinated attacks. Maya realized they'd been studying her movements, learning her patterns. These weren't just college kids anymore, they were adapting like real soldiers. She managed to drop 3 more before the numbers overwhelmed her. Hands grabbed her arms and legs, trying to pin her down. Maya fought with everything she had, but 12 opponents was 12 too many for anyone, regardless of training. A chokehold closed around her throat from behind. Maya drove her elbow backward, felt it connect with ribs, and the hold loosened. She spun free, only to find herself face to face with Patterson again. "Give up," he said. "You fought well, but it's over." Maya looked around the circle of cadets. They were all breathing hard, several sporting visible bruises and limping slightly. She'd hurt them, but not badly. Meanwhile, she was exhausted, her shoulders screaming, and facing opponents who were learning her techniques with every exchange. In a real combat situation, she would have used lethal force from the beginning, knives, improvised weapons, strikes to vital areas. But this wasn't combat. It was a lesson disguised as a fight. "You're right," she said quietly. "It is over." The cadets tensed, expecting another attack. Instead, Maya sat down cross-legged on the workout mat. "What are you doing?" Kim asked. "Sitting down." Maya looked up at Patterson. "You won. 12 on 1, you managed to overwhelm me. Congratulations." The triumph in Patterson's eyes was mixed with confusion. "So you admit you're not what you claimed?" "I admit that 12 trained fighters can beat one regardless of that one's background." Maya wiped sweat from her forehead. "Which brings us to your 5 minutes." "Our what?" "You agreed to listen to what I have to say." 5 minutes. Patterson looked around at the others, then shrugged. "Fine, talk." Maya stood up slowly, her movements careful and controlled. "First, you did good work tonight. You planned well, adapted during the fight, and worked as a team. Those are valuable skills. But," Crawford asked. But you're thinking like this was a competition. Win or lose, points scored, game over. Maya began walking slowly around the circle, making eye contact with each cadet. In real combat, there are no winners. There are survivors and casualties. We know that, Kim said. Do you? Maya stopped in front of him. You attacked an instructor on academy grounds. If I had been seriously injured, your careers would be over. If I had seriously injured one of you, same result. You risked everything for what? Pride? To find out the truth about you, Patterson said. Maya nodded. Fair enough. You want the truth? Here it is. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos until she found what she was looking for. She handed it to Patterson. That's my SEAL team, 12 operators including me. We served 3 deployments in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq, and several classified missions in other locations. Patterson stared at the phone, then passed it to Crawford. Maya could see the recognition dawning in their faces as they processed what they were seeing. The reason you couldn't find records of my service is because most of it is classified. The reason I'm here is because I took shrapnel during our last mission and needed time to heal. The reason I can fight 12 of you at once is because I spent 6 years training with the best special operations forces in the world. The phone made its way around the circle. Each cadet looked at the photo, then at Maya, reassessing everything they thought they knew. But more importantly, Maya continued, the reason you were able to overwhelm me tonight is because I let you. What do you mean? Kim asked. Maya walked to the weight rack and picked up a 20-pound dumbbell. Without warning, she hurled it at the wall. It punched through the drywall and embedded itself in the concrete behind. I mean, I've been fighting you like your fellow soldiers instead of enemy combatants. I've been pulling my strikes, avoiding vital areas, trying not to cause permanent damage. She looked around the circle. If this had been a real fight, half of you would be dead and the rest would be in the hospital. The silence stretched out as this sank in. The first rule of combat, Maya said, is that there are no rules. The second rule is that your enemy won't show you the same mercy you show them. You think because you can beat me 12-on-1 in a controlled environment, you understand fighting? You understand nothing. She walked to the center of the circle again. I could have ended this fight in 30 seconds. Crushed windpipes, shattered kneecaps, broken necks. I could have turned this room into a morgue. Her voice was quiet, but carried absolutely. The only reason you're all still breathing is because you're American soldiers, and I've sworn an oath to protect you, even from your own stupidity. Patterson was the first to speak. Why didn't you just tell us from the beginning? About the SEALs, I mean. Because my service record isn't what makes me qualified to teach you. My experience is. Maya looked at each of them. And now you have experience too. You know what it feels like to fight someone who's been in actual combat. You know the difference between training and reality. We didn't know, Crawford said quietly. No, you didn't. But you made assumptions based on appearances. In combat, assumptions get people killed. Maya picked up her phone. How many of you assumed I was weak because I'm small? How many assumed I was inexperienced because I'm young? How many thought my gender made me less dangerous? Several cadets shifted uncomfortably. Those same assumptions will get you killed overseas. The enemy doesn't look like what you expect. Threats don't come in convenient packages with warning labels. Maya headed toward the door. That's your real lesson for tonight. Wait, Patterson called out. Are you going to report this? Maya stopped and looked back. Report what? That I gave 12 future officers a practical demonstration in tactical assessment and the dangers of underestimating opponents? That sounds like exactly what I was assigned to do. She opened the door, then paused. But if any of you ever break into my room again, or threaten me, or treat any other instructor with the same disrespect you showed me, you'll discover there are lessons I haven't taught you yet. Understood? A chorus of "Yes, ma'am" echoed through the gym. Maya left them there, probably to spend the next hour processing what had just happened. She walked through the empty academy hallways, her footsteps echoing off polished floors. Back in her room, she checked her injuries: bruised ribs, a cut on her lip, some soreness in her shoulder. Nothing serious. She'd taken worse damage during training exercises. Her phone buzzed with a text from Captain Morrison. "How are the cadets adjusting to you?" Maya typed back. "They're learning." She didn't elaborate. Morrison would hear the full story eventually, probably from the academy commander when someone noticed the hole in the gym wall. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, 12 young officers had learned something that couldn't be taught from textbooks or classroom lectures. They'd learned the difference between thinking you're dangerous and actually being dangerous. They'd learned that the most lethal enemies often come in packages that look harmless. Most importantly, they'd learned humility. Maya looked at the photo of her SEAL team, still displayed on her phone. 12 faces smiling at the camera, most of them now serving in other units or transitioning back to civilian life. They'd been her brothers in arms, the people she'd trusted with her life and who had trusted her with theirs. These cadets weren't her brothers, not yet, but maybe, with the right lessons and enough hard-earned wisdom, some of them could become worthy of the trust that soldiers placed in their officers. Outside her window, the academy bells chimed Aero 200 hours. In 3 hours, she'd wake up and start another day of teaching young officers about the realities of warfare. But tonight's lesson had been the most important one she'd delivered since arriving at the academy. Tomorrow, things would be different. The cadets would look at her with new eyes, speak to her with genuine respect instead of condescension. They'd understand that the small, quiet woman in instructor's uniform was someone who'd earned her position through blood and sacrifice, not politics or favoritism. And maybe, just maybe, they'd be better officers for having learned that lesson while the stakes were still low and the consequences could be healed with ice packs and bruised pride. Maya set her phone aside and prepared for bed. 3 more weeks of instruction to go, and she suspected the next phase would be much more productive than the first. Nothing focused a student's attention quite like discovering how much they didn't know. The reflection in her window showed a woman who looked tired but satisfied. She'd done her job tonight, not just as an instructor, but as a mentor. The methods had been unconventional, but the lessons had been necessary. Tomorrow, she'd start teaching them about leadership under pressure, about making decisions when people's lives hung in the balance. Tonight's experience would give those lessons weight they couldn't have had otherwise. Maya smiled at her reflection and closed her eyes. Mission accomplished.